On October 12, 2005, the daughter of a jewelry syndicate was missing when she was traveling in Hong Kong. A couple of days later, she was shockingly discovered in Hong Kong's Revenue Tower, not as a tourist, but as a dead body. The Hong Kong Revenue Tower is an essential part of the city's governance infrastructure, playing a pivotal role in facilitating tax collection and public services, serving as headquarters for various government departments, including the IRD. So this building is designed to ensure the safety of both government operations and the general public accessing its facility, including entrance screening, ID check, on-site security portal with armed guards, CCTV camera everywhere. So, who could possibly pull off a crime in such a high-security office building, surrounded by government employees and armed guards, and still leave the police completely baffled with no leads? And what is even more unexpected is that after 3 years later, just as the case was about to fading from public's attention, a new murder case brought the suspect back into the spotlight. At 9 a.m. on October 24, 2005, an ASIC technician called Tan Shenwang has entered their air unit room on the 33rd floor of the Revenue Tower to do maintenance work. For him, it should just be a routine check like any other day else. But when he was climbing the ladder to reach the top of the air vent unit, he found a black, swollen, human-like figure lying over there with a red plastic bag on the end of his figure. At first, Tan thought a big-sized mannequin that someone had dumped here, and he did not approach to the object immediately, but called his supervisor to report the situation. A couple of minutes, two colleagues came at the top. The three of them climbed the ladder and tried to take a closer look, but when they poked the mannequin's stomach with an umbrella, it was so soft that the feeling was like touching the flesh. So the worst scenario became their first instinct. It was a body. And soon, they quickly notified the police. After a quick browsing from the police, the body was identified as a middle-aged female. Her head was covered with a red plastic bag tied around her neck. Her hands had also been bound behind her back. The body's facial were no longer recognizable, making it extremely difficult to estimate the exact time of death. Because it was October and Hong Kong was still hot, the high temperature and the intermittent operation of the air vent unit, the room experienced temperature fluctuations about 10 degrees. This caused the body to decompose unevenly, resulting in a bloated, distorted appearance. In addition, the police observed that the victim was dressed in a white t-shirt and black trousers. She was wearing a pair of pearl earrings with an extra gold earring on her left ear. On her left wrist, she had a Rolex watch and a Tiffany bracelet. Beside the body lay a pair of Chanel high heels. Judging by her outfit and accessories, the victim appeared to be financially well established. According to the forensic examination, the victim was 5 feet 1 inch tall, weighed about 79 pounds, and was around 40 years old. There were multiple scratches on her neck and chest, and a stab wound on her right chest that pierced through from the back. While the stab wound penetrated the chest cavity, it was not fatal. The actual cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation. Above all that, there were traces of sedatives found inside the victim's body, indicating that she had been drugged before her death. The victim's clothing was intact, and her entire body had been cleaned with a detergent, which prevented the recovery of biological evidence from others and made it impossible to determine whether she had been assaulted. The crime scene was located on top of a 10 feet high air unit machine. Moving the victim's body to such a height would have been extremely difficult for one person to accomplish. The police initially speculated that more than one perpetrator might have been involved. But there is another question. The victim was dressed with luxury jewelry, raising the possibility that she was being stalked, robbed, and killed to cover up the crime. And here, none of the victim's valuable possessions were missing. These questions remained unanswered for the time being, leaving the police no choice but to begin their investigations by identifying the victim. On the night of the crime being found, the news was all over the Hong Kong media and headlines everywhere. Among those who saw the news was Thailand's Deputy Consul General in Hong Kong, May Bijan. She noticed that the victim's description closely matched that of Chirata Kamararez, a Thai-Chinese woman reported missing on October 13. May immediately contacted the police to provide this information. The police quickly got in touch with Chirata's family. On October 25, her sister Xie Lidai flew in from the United States to assist with the investigation. Xie Lidai confirmed that the victim was indeed her sister, who had been missing for 2 weeks. The police began by investigating Schroeder's background. According to her sister, she was born in Thailand and was 40 years old at the time. The parents were overseas Chinese originally from Chaozhou, Guangdong. The Xie's family owned a successful jewelry business in Thailand. Schroeder was born in Thailand in 1965. Her father mined gemstone across Thailand when he was younger and later went to Madagascar to start a diamond mine. As a result of her father's actions, Schroeder's family enjoyed a fortune and was one of Thailand's most well-known jewelry families. Due to their parents' wealth, Schroeder and her younger sister didn't have to worry about things others would, and even had the chance to travel abroad, with Schroeder's going to college in the United States, where alongside Thai, she also became fluent in English, Mandarin, and some Cantonese. After her education, she returned to Thailand to help with her father's business. In 1988, she married a man, and the two were very loving, but after Schroeder suffered several miscarriages, and it caused a rift in their relationship. By 2003, the two decided to have a peaceful divorce. Despite the separation, her ex-husband continued to assist Schroeder in managing one of her jewelry stores in Bangkok. Shortly after their divorce, Schroeder's father was killed in a car accident in Madagascar. Since her sister was married to an American man and living in the United States, while her father had no other children, Schroeder took over the family business. Due to her new job, she'd often travel to Singapore, Myanmar, and Hong Kong, and it was during one of his visits to Hong Kong that she met Wade Muller. Wade was a professional photographer and production consultant who often traveled to Hong Kong for professional shots and filming. The two quickly fell in love and were in a relationship. On October 10, 2005, the couple traveled to Hong Kong together and checked into the Imperial Hotel. They planned to stay for 5 days. Both had work commitments on October 11 and 12, so they scheduled a trip to Disneyland on the 13th and planned to return to Thailand together on the 14th. On October 11, Schroeder planned to visit the Revenue Tower's 9th floor to inquire about opening a store. Before heading out for a photo shoot, Muller asked her to also pick up a book for him from the film service office on the Revenue Tower. However, it turned out that the October 11 was the Chongyang Festival, and when Schroeder arrived at the Revenue Tower, she found that the staff were on holiday. She had no choice but to return the next day. Following the next day, Schroeder continued sending text messages to her ex-husband, who was still in Thailand, with words such as "I still can't get over it." But he never saw or responded to the message. Later that day, she called Wade and said she was going to Tsim Sha Tsui for shopping and to pick up a book on film production that Wade had wanted. But after that, Muller was unable to get in touch with Schroeder. Schroeder was very close with her sister, and the two would often call each other daily. But also, her sister called her and found her phone turned off. That evening, she didn't return to the hotel either. Schroeder was last seen alive, boarding a ferry to Wan Chai. After Schroeder disappeared, her family searched her but found no leads. Left with no other options, they turned to the embassy in Hong Kong for help and filed a police report. Once the police took over, the first to review her immigration records and confirmed that Schroeder had not left Hong Kong. They then distributed her information to patrol officers across different districts, asking them to keep an eye out for her. However, by October 16, there was still no sign of Schroeder. Her ex-husband also came to Hong Kong to assist in the search, but even his efforts yielded no clues. It was as if Schroeder had vanished into thin air. This continued until October 24, when Schroeder's body was discovered on top of the air vent machine in the Revenue Tower. By then, her remains were in a state of highly decomposition. For motive, the police ruled out robbery due to her high-end clothing and jewelry still being present. They also had doubts that the murder was motivated by revenge, as she wasn't a local and barely visited Hong Kong, so they were at a loss to determine who would have a grudge against her. And lastly, they were struggling to envision how the murder even happened, as the crime took place in a heavily guarded government building, with her body being transported to a hard-to-reach area. In 2023, the United Nations reported that 60% of female homicides were perpetrated by intimate partners or family members. With this in mind, the police first suspicion fell on the victim's boyfriend, Wade. After learning more about her background, because Wade was 10 years younger than Schroeder, and there was a significant gap between their financial standings, The police began their investigations by focusing on Wade. But according to Wade, he had been out filming a movie that day and didn't return to his hotel until the evening, leaving him no time to commit the crime. His colleagues also verified his alibi. Additionally, surveillance footage from around the revenue tower confirmed that Schrader had indeed entered the building that day. With this evidence, Wade was largely ruled out as a suspect. A crime of passion was also considered, but police later ruled this out and focused on employees of the revenue tower and other passersby, with their main suspects being various contracted workers. The room she was found was an area where you needed a passcode to enter, and visitors needed to be registered at the front desk to get in the area. In early October, the building had undergone several repairs and renovations, with multiple workers being gained access to that area, which thus made the number of people more frequent than usual. Hotel surveillance footage revealed that when Schrader left the hotel that day, she was carrying a black bag. According to Wade, she had packed her passport, credit card, and a small amount of cash in the bag before leaving. However, when her body was discovered, the bag was missing. The police already suspected that Schrader might have been killed during a robbery. After hearing Mueller's testimony, they immediately retrieved the usage records of her credit cards. On the early morning of October 14, her credit cards was used at ATM in Taiwo Estate Mall, Taipo. The person attempting to withdraw cash tried to take out 20,000 Hong Kong dollar, but entered the wrong PIN 3 times, causing the machine to retain the card. Unfortunately, surveillance footage showed the individual was fully covered, making it impossible to identify them. What was clear, however, was that robbery was one of the killer's motives. On October 26, the police reviewed the CCTV footage from 4 nearby subway stations and the ferry terminal. They confirmed that she was in the vicinity of the building on the morning of October 12, but no footage of Schrader inside the building appears to have been found. Police also conducted a thorough investigation of everyone working in the revenue tower. Given the building's tight security system and the fact that the air vent machine was not a location commonly known to outsiders, they speculated that the killer was highly likely an insider familiar with the building. The police also reviewed surveillance footage from several kilometers around the area and discovered that only one person, an external maintenance worker, lived in Taipo, close to the location where Schrader's credit card had been used. Later that evening, the police did arrest this man and informed the counterparts, but he was later found to be unrelated. On October 27, the police took statements from every employee on duty that day, asking about their routines that day on October 12th, and if they had seen Schrader. On October 28, they questioned 30 workers and even searched the home of one of them who lived nearby, but all of these workers were ruled out as suspects. Running out of ideas, the police on November 5 published all details of the case on TV in hopes anyone watching would come forward. On January 23, 2006, saying that the Hong Kong police were unable to solve the case, Schrader's sister and boyfriend decided to offer a massive reward of 700,000 Hong Kong dollars for information, which was the second highest reward ever offered by Hong Kong police for a case. However, despite the large reward, no progress was made in the investigation. The case, including the police's failure to solve it, became big news in Hong Kong due to one more chilling detail. At that time, Wade had gone to Hong Kong to film a thriller movie called Count to 10. The movie's plot was very similar to Schrader's murder, with some details perfectly mirroring it. The plot of the movies was about seemingly impossible murders occurring one after the other, which would baffle the police. One of the murders in the script was very similar to Schrader's case. Even the producer Johnny Guy came out and shared his feeling. After the murder, most staffs of the crew, including Wade, felt unsettled and feared that the killer might be a part of the production team. So people left the team, which led to the production of the film being halted. It appears to be unknown how much work has completed beforehand, but whatever was finished remains lost media. For the next 3 years, the case remained unsolved until 2008, when the murder of another woman brought Schrader's killer to light. At around 5 a.m. on May 15, 2008, Xu Zhen, the cargo department manager at Jardine Aviation Service Limited, a ground handling service provider at Hong Kong International Airport, suddenly received a text message from Hu Ying, a ground handling staff member. In the message, Hu Ying said that a friend of hers needed help with something and that she would have to leave Hong Kong for a few days. She asked Xu to request leave for the company on her behalf. Xu Zhen was shocked because Hu Ying was his girlfriend, and she had never mentioned anything like this to her boyfriend before. As he thought more about it, the situation seemed increasingly suspicious. Think about it. What kind of friend's issue could be so urgent that she needed to leave Hong Kong at 5 a.m.? Secondly, since their company operated 24-hour shifts, if she was able to send a text, why didn't she call her supervisor directly to request leave? The two of them didn't work in the same department, so was there something preventing her from making a call? Third, Hu-Ying's work hours were from noon to midnight. After her shift, she usually took the E41 airport bus, arriving at the bus stop outside the Tin Kong Road. She usually took the E41 Airbus, arriving at the bus stop outside the Tin Kong Road fire station around 1:30 a.m., before walking another 20 minutes to reach home. That 20 minutes walk was through a sparsely populated area, something Xu had always worried about. Could it be that the text message wasn't actually sent by Hu-Ying? Feeling increasingly uneasy, Xu Zhen immediately called his girlfriend's phone, but no one answered. Eventually, her phone was turned off. Xu then asked his colleague to help contact Hu-Ying and her family. On the morning of May 15, after learning about the situation, Hu-Ying's family searched the area around her home in Kamshan village for several hours. However, they found no trace of her. On the afternoon of May 15, as expected, Hu-Ying did not show up at work. Around 3 p.m., her father, Chu Kai-ming, received a text message from Hu-Ying's phone. It read, "Dad, don't worry about me. I'll be back in 3 or 4 days. I just really need money to help a friend right now. Please deposit some money into my bank account." Chu Kai-ming found the message really disturbing and suspected that his daughter might be in danger, but couldn't be straightforward. So the father went to the police to file a report. However, since Hu-Ying had been missing for less than 24 hours and there was no clear evidence to support that she was in danger, the police only filed a record of this report, and this record was handed over to the missing person unit the following morning. When investigators visiting the airport to question Xu Zhen, they found nothing suspicious. They speculated that Hu-Ying might have had a disagreement with her parents or boyfriend, or perhaps she was simply overwhelmed with work and acting out to draw some attention. Anyway, this matter wasn't triggered any alarm at this stage. On the morning of May 17, Hu-Ying's mother and Xu Zhen went to the bank to check her account activity. They discovered that the bank card had been used at an ATM in Taiwo Estate Mall at around 1:50 a.m. on May 15 to withdraw 400 Hong Kong dollars, followed by another withdrawal of 19,600 Hong Kong dollar about half an hour later. On May 16, another 20,000 Hong Kong dollar was withdrawn from a different ATM in the same mall. At that point, only 20,000 Hong Kong dollar remained in the account. On the morning of May 19, Hu-Ying's mother visited the bank again to check the account. She found that the remaining 20,000 Hong Kong dollar had been withdrawn on the night of May 17, leaving the account empty. After the 40,000 Hong Kong dollar was withdrawn from Hu-Ying's credit card on May 15, after the 40,000 Hong Kong dollar was withdrawn from Hu-Ying's credit card on May 15 and 16, most of the people immediately suspected that she might be in danger. However, her family still held onto a glimmer of hope. Hu-Ying had always been sweet, sensible, and well-mannered, with a beautiful and elegant appearance. She was very popular among boys at her age. While attending Carmel Hollywood Secondary School, she met Cho Wing-Kwang, who lived in the Sunwell building in Taiwo State, the same neighborhood as her family. The two were young and smitten with each other and quickly became a couple. But several years ago, Ying found that their personalities were incompatible, and after encouragement from her family, ended the relationship. Despite this, their 4-year romance had left the both with solid memories. However, Chu's feeling for Hu-Ying were still strong, and he struggled to move on. He even developed depression and spent over 6 months in treatment before beginning to recover. Since the ATM withdrawals occurred near Taiwo Estate Mall, that is close to Chu's residence, Hu-Ying's family speculated that he might have been facing difficulties and reached out to his ex-girlfriend for help. Believing that Hewing's kind heart wouldn't let her refuse, they thought she might have decided to assist him. They further guessed that Hewings didn't want her current boyfriend, Xu Zhen, or her family to know about her contact with Chu, so she can make up a story and disappeared to avoid suspicion. Now that all of Hui Ying's savings had been withdrawn, her family began to realize a far more frightening possibility. The initial withdrawal of 400 Hong Kong dollars was indeed made by Hui Ying, but she was likely just taking out some money for daily expense. However, it was during this withdrawal that she was targeted and abducted by a criminal. The subsequent withdrawal of 19,600 Hong Kong dollar likely occurred after the perpetrator forced her to review her password. As ATMs have a daily withdrawal limit of 20,000 Hong Kong dollar, on May 16 and 17, the perpetrator withdrew the remaining 40,000 Hong Kong dollar in separate transactions. This led to a very uncomfortable conclusion. Hui Ying was likely in serious danger or had already been killed. The family couldn't ignore the possibility that the culprit might be Chu Wenquan, her former lover who couldn't let go of her. Realizing this, Hui Ying's mother could no longer be calmed. She immediately went to the police to file another report. After learning about these developments, the police also found the situation highly suspicious. They quickly formed a task force to launch a full investigation. The family, along with the villagers, searched the nearby hills multiple times but found nothing. Meanwhile, the investigations team interviewed numerous people but failed to uncover any leads. On the evening of May 20, Xu Zhen suddenly received another text messages from Hui Ying's phone number. The messages contain only one sentence. The ransom can be anything between 1 and 500,000. You decide. Shocked by the ransom demand, Xu immediately informed Chu Kongming. After discussing the situation, the group decided to seek police assistance. The case was then handed over to the 3rd Team of the North District Crime Unit for further investigation. The crime unit instructed Xu Zhen to maintain contact with the tax sender and pretended to negotiate the ransom. Xu eventually managed to lower the demanded amount to 100,000 Hong Kong dollar. Meanwhile, the crime unit sought assistance from a telecommunications company to trace the message. The investigations pinpointed the location of the text to Tai Po, Kun Tam, and Yau Mo Tai. With all these promising leads piercing together, crime unit strongly believed that Chu Wenquan, Hui Ying's first love and ex-boyfriend, was prime suspect of this case. And another fact really boosted up this possibility was that after recovering from depression, Chu purchased a van for commercial transportation and his regular routes were included Ku Tam and Yau Ma Tai, while Tai Po was his residence. And these 3 places was exactly the location that had been traced by the telecommunication company. Could be a coincidence, right? It could, but the average distance between Tai Po and Yau Ma Tai or Quinton is close to 20 kilometers. And it's really unusual for someone to travel back and forth like a routine between these locations within a single day without a specific reason. On the night of May 21, the police dispatched officers to intercept Chu Wenquan's van and brought him back to the station for questioning. But Chu was very shocked and insisted denying that he had nothing to do with any of this. He claimed that he doesn't even know Hui Ying's been missing, and the investigators didn't find the Hui Ying's phone or SIM card on Chu Wenquan's during the search. So they asked Xu Zhen to send another message to Hui Ying's phone number. And guess what? They got a reply at noon on May 22, while Chu was being custody at police station. With Chu Wenquan still in the interrogation room, someone else replied to the text. Was that really the case that police were chasing the wrong guy? Even with these convinced coincidence? Crime unit chose to dance with whoever was on the other side of the phone. They instructed Xu Zhen to keep communicating with the kidnapper and bargained 100,000 Hong Kong dollar ransom for Xu to deliver with a white bag as instructed. According to the kidnapper's directions, money was to be left on a specific seat on a Kowloon Bus Road 72X at 8 p.m. on the evening of May 22. Xu Zhen placed the bag on the bus seat as the kidnapper instructed. The whole operation was under close surveillance by the crime unit, and they noticed a man on the exact same bus, texting all the time. By tracing the phone signal, crime unit confirmed that the man was indeed the kidnapper, and he was also the one who picked up the ransom. But to ensure Hui Ying's safety, The police choose not to act immediately and instead follow the man back to his residence at Taiwo Estate, Taipo, at 9:50 p.m. The kidnapper entered Unit 1 of Ju-Hop House in Taipo Estate, Taipo. At 9:50 p.m., the kidnapper entered Unit 1 of Ju-Hop House in Taiwo Estate, carrying the bag. With evidence and suspect on site, this is the window to act. Chief of Crime Unit gave the order to make the arrest. So they stormed the apartment and broke the door real quick and got contact with 4 individuals. Police then took them down without any resistance, and they found a phone containing Hewing's SIM card on one of the suspects. In the bedroom, they recovered the bag with the marked 100,000 Hong Kong dollar ransom, as well as several items belonged to Hewing. The 4 individuals were taken back to the police station. At 4 a.m. on May 23, the 4 suspects previously arrested were transferred to Taipo Crime Unit for further investigations. After less than 2 hours of interrogation, the man found with Hewing's SIM card confessed the abducting and murdering. But what shocked everyone was that this man turned out to be Su Jingtang, the same person the police had suspected 3 years earlier. With Su Jingtang's confession, the truth of the case come to light. Su, at the time, was 25-year-old and lived with the parents who ran a fish farm restaurant in Sanmapsai district. He was also lived with his 4 siblings in Ju-Hop House. After high school, he worked as a renovation worker and then became an appliance repair technician. But Su was also a gambler. He gambled a lot in Macau and put himself in a 100,000 Hong Kong dollars high-interest debt. It was his family and friends who lent a hand to cover the debt. But just a couple months before the crime, he borrowed another 70K from a loan company, claiming it was for a study trip to Taiwan. But in fact, he spent all the money for entertainment and playing around, leaving himself broke once again. In April 2008, the loan company began pushing Su to pay his debt, and with no money to settle, he came up with the idea of kidnapping for ransom. 10 days before abducting and murdering Hewing, he specifically scouted for a place to dispose of the body, near a park by Taiwo Estate Mall. There was a drainage channel. The water level in the channel was typically shallow, only 2 to 3 centimeters deep, making it unlikely for the body to drift away. The location was also secluded that people rarely ventured. In the midnight of May 15, Su was carrying a knife, walking around near the Taiwo Estate Mall. He was targeting at female, alone, and then he saw Hewing carrying a Louis Vuitton handbag and withdraw 400 Hong Kong dollar from ATM, and then walked along toward a village, making her the perfect target. Su followed her, and as they passed the park, he struck. He grabbed Hewing by the neck with one hand and brandished a knife with the other, forcing her to a secluded spot. There, he threatened her to give up the bank password, and he assured her if she gave him the password, he would let her go. Hewing was shocked and didn't dare resist, so she just gave her password without hesitation. But Su had no intention of letting her go, because she might live nearby. What if she recognized him and went to the police? Without a second to thought, Su used both hands to strangle Hewing for several minutes, only stopping when he was certain she was no longer breathing. Su Jingtang then hid Hewing's body in a pile of grass, took her bank card, and withdrew 19,600 Hong Kong dollars. Afterward, he returned to his residence at Ju-Hop House to retrieve cleaning supplies before heading back to the scene. There, he dragged her body into the drainage channel. Then he used Hewing's bank card to cash out 40K in 2 separate transactions. Added with previous withdrawal made it 60K in total. While Su's agenda was to use this money to pay his debt, the cash he obtained was quickly squandered on his personal indulgence. Not a single cent went toward the loan company, and surely they would not be happy about it, and then keep pushing Su, trying to squeeze the money out. Seeing that Hewing's body had still not been discovered, Su fabricated a fake kidnapping scheme to extort ransom money from her family. With Su's confession, the police were able to locate Hewing's body, along with her phone, gaming console, and work ID. With this, the evidence chain in Hewing's case was complete, and the case was successfully solved. Alright, let's take a pause and wind the clock back to 3 years ago. the case of Curator, and her lost bank card was used exactly in the same ATM in Taiwo Estate Mall. Secondly, the forensic report from Curator's autopsy revealed traces of clean agents on her body, a step that Su Jingtang also acted after killing Hu Ying. Thirdly, neither crime scene was particularly well hidden, indicating that the perpetrator didn't intend for the bodies to disappear permanently. The body and the meticulously planned nature of Hu Ying's murder further suggested that Su Jingtang was no stranger to committing such crimes. Lastly, Su had previously worked as an air conditioning system repairman, and during the time of Curator's murder, he was employed at the Revenue Tower. The most crucial piece of evidence, however, was the discovery that the Taiwo Estate Juhab House worker initially investigated in Curator's case, the one flagged for suspicious use of a transportation card, was none other than Su Jingtang himself. The crime unit decided to continue interrogating Su Jingtang to dig out more information, but he's still denying killing Curator. Investigators recall that the earlier conclusion that there must have been a compliance in Curator's case, as it would have been difficult for one person to lift her body onto the event unit alone. They reviewed the surveillance footage from the time of the incident and noticed Su wearing a baseball cap, walking and talking with another man near the building. Further investigation identified the man as Guo Zhihui, a former classmate of Su. Believing Guo to be the likely in compliance, the crime unit summoned him to the police station for questioning on June 6, 2008. Without any surprise, Guo Zhihui also denied having any involvement in Curator's case. He did admit that he had been with Su that day, but claimed that Su was merely helping him find a job at the labor department and insisted that he had never entered the building. However, crime unit found that Guo had never gone to the labor department at all that day. They warned him that if he didn't reveal the truth about Curator's case, he would be charged with complicity in Hu Ying's murder. They also added that if he confessed, he could potentially become a state witness or receive a reduced sentence. Knowing this stake, Guo was really panicked and started to telling everything. He admitted to helping Su move Curator's body and discredit. He said on one day in October 2005, he couldn't recall the exact date, Su called him to ask for help with a job the following day. The next afternoon, the two met at the Revenue Tower, but Guo claimed they didn't discuss the specific of the jobs until they entered the air vent unit room. Upon arriving at the 33rd floor of the Revenue Tower, Su told Guo to put on a pair of labor gloves. He then led Guo into the air handling unit room, which contained 2 units of different heights. Scattered across the floor was a pile of newspaper. Su pushed aside the newspaper, revealing a red plastic bag. As he moved more paper, a horrifying sight emerged: a woman's body lying face down on the ground, dressed in white t-shirt and dark trousers. The sight left Guo momentarily frozen in shock, but Su ignored his reaction. He pulled out a knife, flipped the body over, and began groping the woman's chest. Then, in a harsh tone, Su ordered Guo to do the same. Guo claimed he was initially reluctant, but felt he had no choice when faced with Su's knife. Under Su's watch, he pulled down the woman's trousers and reached into her lower body. After the desecration, Su directed Guo to help lift the body onto the air handling unit, with Guo carrying the legs while Su handled the upper body. Once the body was in place, Su poured cleaning agents over it, then cleaned the door of the air handling unit room and picked up the newspaper from the floor. After finishing, Su led Guo out of the building, and the two went to Mongkok to visit a brothel. A few days later, Su and Guo revisited the building and checked on the situation. However, when they arrived at the air handling unit room, they found that someone was working there, so they had to leave. But Su later returned to the air unit room again and informed Guo that the police had discovered the body. Later, Su gave Guo a diamond ring and a phone, claiming they belonged to Curator. Once inside the room, Curator began to resist and struggle. Su stabbed her and forced her to give up her bank card PIN. He took her back and went out to withdraw money, but he had blood on his clothes. He used paint to cover it up. When he returned, he found Curator wasn't already dead. Su claimed he never intended to kill Curator, After tying Charita's hands behind her back, Sue stabbed her, and he covered her head with a red plastic bag before leaving to the bank. It wasn't until he returned that he realized Charita was already dead. Since the motivation was about the money, the police asked Sue why he didn't take Charita's Rolex watch. Sue explained that valuable items like that were difficult to sell and didn't fetch a good price, which is why he didn't bother taking it. The police, of course, didn't buy the story, because in Hong Kong there are tons of watch stores that take used watch and also sell. Watches like Rolex, if it's real, are considered liquid assets in the market. But to Sue's surprise, the PIN number Charita gave him turned out to be fake, and in the end, he has not withdrawn with a penny. At last, this 3-year case was finally solved. On March 13, 2009, the Hong Kong High Court jury unanimously found Sue guilty of murdering Chu Hong-ying and sentenced him to life imprisonment. In March 2010, the trial for the Charita case began in the High Court. Sue was once again convicted of murder and sentenced to another life sentence. With 2 life sentences stacked together, Sue will spend the rest of his days behind bars. My name is Charles, focused on crime case storytelling. If you like my channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification button. If there's a case you wanted me to explore and tell, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.